My dear fellow,
Said Sherlock Holmes as he sat by the fire in his house at Baker.
real life is infinitely stranger than anything we could invent. We would not dare invent things which are commonplace things of life. If we could go out of that window, fly over this great city, gently remove the roofs of the houses and look at the peculiar things that are happening, the strange coincidences, the plans, and the wonderful chains of events, we would discover things much more interesting than in books.
But I don't believe it. I answer. The stories in the newspaper are never very interesting. In fact, they are always very boring.
This is because newspapers always repeat the official reports of magistrates and police reports. You can be certain that there is nothing as unnatural and strange as the commonplace.
I know that all your cases are always very interesting. But let us look at today's newspaper. I picked up the newspaper and began to read an article. It was about a husband who was cruel to his wife. I don't have to read the article, but I am sure that the man was drunk and he began to hit his wife. I am also sure that there was a sympathetic sister or landlady.
You have chosen a bad example, Watson, because I have
Say it,
walked on
Holmes.
the man, Mr. Dundas, was not drunk, and he did not hate her wife. Instead, at the end of every meal, he took out his false teeth and threw them at his wife. You must admit that nobody could invent such a story.
But do you have very interesting cases now?
Well, I'm working on 10 or 12 cases, but none of them are interesting. They are important to understand without being interesting. I have found that unimportant matters are usually more interesting. If there is a big crime, the motive is generally obvious, so they are generally not very interesting. But I think I will have an interesting case in a few minutes.
Holmes was standing at the window, looking down at the dull grey London streets. There was a woman standing in the street. She was moving her hand nervously. It was obvious that she could not make up her mind. Then suddenly she ran across the road and rang Holmes' doorbell.
You know
Ding
what?
dong.
I know these symptoms. When a woman hesitates like that on the pavement, it means she has a love problem. She wants help, but she thinks that her problem is too delicate to communicate. But when a woman does not hesitate and rings the doorbell hard, it means she was seriously wronged. In this case, this woman is somewhat confused and perplexed and wants an explanation.
As Holmes was speaking, the servant announced Miss Mary Sutherland. She was a large woman. She wore a hat with some red feather, a black jacket, a dark brown dress, and a grey glove. She also wore round gold earrings. When Holmes saw her, he said,
Isn't it difficult for you to type with such bad eyesight?
I thought so at first, but now I can type without looking at the keys.
Then she looked surprised and frightened when she understood that Holmes already knew so much about her.
How do you know that?
It's my business to know things. If I could not see these things, why would people come to me? And just because I can see the marks of the glasses on your nose.
I have come here because I want to know where Mr. Hosmerangel has gone.
Why did you come here in such hurry?
Once again, Miss Sutherland looked very surprised. Holmes explained that her boots were not the same, that were not completely buttoned.
Yes, I did hurry out of the house because I was angry at Mr. Windibank. That is, my father. He did to ask the police about Mr. Angel. He said,
Hmm.
"This made me so angry. I came here to see you."
Hmm. Your father. He must be your stepfather because his surname is different from you.
Yes, my stepfather. I call him father, even though that's strange to me. You see, he's only 5 years older than me.
And is your mother alive?
Oh, yes, mother is alive and well. But I'm not happy when she married Mr. Windibank so soon after father died. Also, Mr. Windibank is 15 years younger than mother. Father was a plumber and had a good business. But when he died, mother continued the business. But when she married Mr. Windibank, he made her sell it.
Do you live on the money from the business?
Oh no, I inherited some money from my uncle. I cannot touch it, but with the interest I receive £100 a year.
Hmm. That should be good enough for you to live quite comfortably.
I give that money to mother and I live on the money I make typing.
Now, Miss Sutherland, can you tell us something about Mr. Hosmerangelo?
Mr. Sutherland blushed deeply and said,
I met him at the plumber's party. They used to send tickets to my father when he was alive, and after he died, they sent them to my mother. But Mr. Windibank didn't want us to go. He said that my father's friends were not good enough for us. But on the day of the party, Mr. Windibank went to France on business. So mother and I went to the hall, and it was there I met Mr. Angel.
Hmm. I suppose that Mr. Windibank was very angry with you when he discovered that you had gone to the party.
No, not very. He said that it was impossible to stop a woman when she really wanted something.
And did you see Mr. Hosmer at the ball?
Yes, but he couldn't come to the house there. Anybody to come to the house. So say that we should wait till my father goes to France before we see each other. In the meantime, we wrote to each other every day.
Were you engaged to the gentleman at this time?
Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Holmes.
Mr. Holmes.
Can you remember any other little things about Mr. Hosmerangelo?
He was a very shy man, Mr. Holmes. He always wanted to walk with me in the evening instead of during the day. He was very gentlemanly. Even his voice was gentle. He told me that he had a bad infection on the tonsils when he was a kid, so he had to whisper. He always wore elegant clothes, his eyes were weak, just like mine, and he wore dark glasses against the sun.
Hmm. What happened when Mr. Windibank returned to France?
Mr. Angel came to my house and said that we should get married before father returned. He was very serious and said, "Put your hand on the Bible and promise me that you will always love me." Mother agreed with him. Mother liked him from the beginning and liked him even more than I did. When they started talking about our getting married within the week, I asked them if I should ask father first. They said no. I, however, did not want to do anything in secret. So I wrote to father at his office in France, but the letter came back to me on the very day of the wedding.
It missed him then.
Yes, he had started back to England just before the letter arrived in France.
Ha! That was unfortunate. Your wedding was planned then for the Friday of the week. Was it to be held in a church?
Yes, sir, but very quietly. On the day of the wedding, Hosmer came in a hansom to take mother and me to the church. But since there was two of us, mother and I went in a hansom and Hosmer took a cab. We got to the church first and the cab arrived. We waited for him to come out, but he never did. The cabman said that he could not understand what happened to him.
I think you have been very badly treated.
Oh no, sir. Hosmer was too good and kind to leave so. Why, all morning before the wedding he said to me, if anything happens to him, I must always love him. I must wait for him. He will return to me. I thought this very strange to say on the day of our wedding, but his disappearance explains everything.
It certainly does. In your opinion, did he know that he was in danger?
Yes, I think so.
But do you know what the danger was?
No, I don't.
One more question. How did your mother react?
She was angry and she told me that I should never speak about him again.
And your father? Did you tell him?
Yes, he said something terrible has happened to Mr. Hosmer, but he will return. I agree with my father. Why would Hosmer leave me? After all, there was no money involved. Hosmer did not borrow money from me, and I never put the money which I had inherited in his name. So he did not take my money and leave.
Then she pulled out a handkerchief and began to cry.
I'll try to solve your problem, but I don't think about it anymore. Forget about Mr. Angel.
Do you think I will ever see him again?
No, I'm afraid not.
Then what has happened to him?
You will leave the question with me. Now, I need some of Mr. Angel's relatives, a good description of him, and also your father's address.
I never had Mr. Angel's address, but here is Windibank's address. He works for a wine importer. Here is the advertisement with a description of Hosmer that I put in the newspaper, The Chronicle.
Miss Sutherland then left, and before leaving, she said,
I will always wait for Mr. Hosmer to return.
when she had left, I asked Home about the case. The young woman is quite interesting, but a little problem is not very difficult or unusual, Holmes. Would you mind reading me the description of Hosmer Angel? I then read it to Holmes. Missing. A gentleman called Hosmer Angel, about 5 feet 7 inch tall. He is a strongly built with white hair, black sidebows, and mustache. He is little bald in the center. He wears dark glasses. He has got a speech defeat. He has got a sallow complexion. He was wearing a black coat, black waistcoat, grey trousers, and brown boots. Please contact Miss Sutherland, etc. etc.
That is enough. Now look at these letters which Hosmer wrote to her. What do you see?
They are typed.
Not only that, but the signature is typed too. The point about the signature is very suggestive. In fact, we can call it conclusive.
Of what?
My dear fellow, can't you see how important this fact is to the case?
No, I can't. Unless Hosmer didn't sign his letter because he didn't want to he'd be legally responsible for what he promised. It's easy.
No, that was not the point. But now I will write two letters which will solve this mystery. One of the letters is to Mr. Windibank's firm in the city, and the other will be to Mr. Windibank himself to ask him to come here to meet us tomorrow evening at sharp 6 o'clock.
A few minutes before 6, the next day I returned to Baker Street. When I walked in, Holmes was doing chemistry experiments. Well, have you solved it? I said as I walked into the room.
Yes, it was the bisulfate of boriata.
Arey, no. Miss Sutherland's case.
Oh, that. I thought you were asking me about the chemistry experiment. There was never any mystery in the matter. The only problem is that the scoundrel did not do anything illegal, so he can't be punished.
Who was Hosmer Angel and why did he abandon Miss Sutherland? But Holmes didn't have time to answer me because just then he heard someone knock at the door and then someone walking towards Holmes' room.
That is the girl's stepfather. He wrote to me to say he was coming.
The man who entered the room was a strongly built fellow with sidebows or mustache, with a sallow complexion, and he looked at us with a pair of penetrating grey eyes. He was wearing a black top hat.
Good evening, Mr. James Windibank. I believe this is a typed letter that you wrote to me to say that you were coming here.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry that Miss Sutherland has troubled you about this little problem. Also, I don't like other people knowing about family misfortune. Anyway, I don't think that you will ever find this Homser angel.
On the contrary, I am almost certain that I will find him.
Mr. Windibank started violently and dropped his gloves.
I'm happy.
He said,
It is a curious thing
remarked Holmes.
that a typewriter is just as distinctive as a man's handwriting. For example, in this letter of yours, I can see that this part of the R has a slight defect. There are also 14 other characteristics of a typewriter.
Mr. Windibank fell on the chair.
I did not do anything illegal.
He stammered.
I'm afraid that you were right, but Mr. Windibank, it was a cruel, selfish, and heartless trick. Now let us look at what happened.
Then Holmes sat down and began to talk.
The man marries a woman older than himself for her money. He can also use the money of the daughter as long as the daughter lives with him and the mother. The daughter has a lot of money, so it is important not to lose it. But the daughter is friendly and affectionate, so it is clear that she will soon find a husband. At first, this man tells the daughter that she cannot go out, but this will not solve the problem forever. Then one day the daughter says that she wants to go to a ball. What does the clever stepfather do then? With the help of the wife, he disguises himself. He wears dark glasses and puts on a fake mustache. Then he changes his voice and speaks very softly. He is even more certain that his plan will work because the girl is short sighted. Then at the ball, this man keeps away from other lovers by becoming the girl's lover himself.
It was just a joke at first. We didn't think that the girl fell in love.
Yes, that's probably true.
Continued Holmes.
But the girl really fell in love and you decided to take the situation to the extreme. You began to see her often and the mother said that she liked him very much. Then you decided to ask Miss Sutherland to marry so that she can think about another man. But it was difficult for you to pretend to go to France every time Sutherland had to see Mr. Angel. You had to end the situation dramatically. In some way, you had to keep Miss Sutherland thinking about other men in the future. Therefore, you made a promise on the Bible and you told her that something could happen on the very morning of the wedding. You took her to the church, but obviously, you could not marry her. You disappeared by using the old trick of entering one door of a cab and walking out the other. I think that this is the chain of the events, Mr. Windibank. I think this is the chain of events, Mr. Windibank.
Yes, maybe that's true. But I did not do anything illegal. And now you're breaking the law because you will not let me leave this room.
You are right. You did not do anything illegal. But you really deserve to be punished, and I would do it.
Then Holmes picked up a riding crop, but by then Mr. Windibank had ran out of the door and out of the house.
Now, he certainly is a cold-blooded scoundrel.
Said
That
Holmes sharply.
fellow will continue doing worse and worse crimes until he does something really bad and finishes on the gallows. In any case, this case had some interesting points.
But Holmes, I cannot completely follow your reasoning in this case.
Well, see, it was clear from the first that Mr. Hosmer Angel had a very good reason for his actions, and that the only man who could really profit from the situation was the stepfather. He wanted to keep the £100 a year. Then it was very suggestive that Mr. Windibank and Mr. Hosmer Angel were never together. So there were the dark glasses, the soft voice, and the mustache. They all suggested a disguise. The final point was the typed signature. This made me think that the handwriting of the man must be very familiar to Miss Sutherland, and that if she saw even a small portion of it, she would recognize it.
And how did you verify these ideas?
Hmm, good point. First, I wrote to Mr. Windibank's firm. In the letter, I described Mr. Angel after I had eliminated everything that could be a disguise, like the glasses, the mustache, and the voice, and I asked them if they had an employee like that. They wrote back to me and said that I had described Mr. James Windibank. Then I wrote to Mr. Windibank to invite him here, and as I expected, he typed his reply to me. Then I compared his letter with the letters of Mr. Angel. Fall it out!
And what about Miss Sutherland?
If I tell her, she will not believe me. Maybe you remember this Persian saying, it is dangerous to take a tiger cub from its mother, and it is dangerous to take a delusion from a
Mr. Windibank fell on the chair.
I did not do anything illegal.
He stammered.
I'm afraid that you were right, but Mr. Windibank, it was a cruel, selfish, and heartless trick. Now let us look at what happened.
Then Holmes sat down and began to talk.
The man marries a woman older than himself for her money. He can also use the money of the daughter as long as the daughter lives with him and the mother. The daughter has a lot of money, so it is important not to lose it. But the daughter is friendly and affectionate, so it is clear that she will soon find a husband. At first, this man tells the daughter that she cannot go out, but this will not solve the problem forever. Then one day the daughter says that she wants to go to a ball. What does the clever stepfather do then? With the help of the wife, he disguises himself. He wears dark glasses and puts on a fake mustache. Then he changes his voice and speaks very softly. He is even more certain that his plan will work because the girl is short sighted. Then at the ball, this man keeps away from other lovers by becoming the girl's lover himself.